Ed, I want to come back to the practice owner withdrawal journey. You know, when we talk about building a business that runs without you, when we talk about freeing up the practice owner time, when we're talking about working on versus working in, all of these terms, you know, I use quite freely and loosely when talking about growing a business, but we want to be as specific as possible to the accounting practice owners or bookkeeping practice owners journey themselves. So I want to look at the methodical process of withdrawing as a practice owner from this business model. And I think a good place to start is to come back and look at some of the, you know, the major roadblocks or the danger zones, as we like to call it, in that growth journey to provide some context for the overall withdrawal journey.
Yeah, sure. So just take a step back. So if you can just imagine in your mind's eye a line in the middle from top to bottom, and on the left-hand side of that line is where you're working for your money. So, you know, employee works for their money. If you start your own business and you're doing all the work, you're working for your money. And then on the right-hand side of that line is where your money is working for you. So when you run a business, it's working for you. And when you have investments, it's working for you. So your money is working for you. So you want to go from your left-hand side of the page to the right-hand side of the page. And in order to do that, there's a transition that you've got to go through. And what we find is that at around 600,000 is your first, and then this is in Australian dollars, is your first sort of hemorrhage point. And then the next hemorrhage point is around $1 million. So most of the firms that ask for help are in these two categories. And if you're able to get through the 600,000 because you've sort of hired more people and they're getting the work done, so you know the work is getting done. But then in order to get efficient out of it and to scale beyond that, you know, and generally the next stage is there's about $1 million is where the hemorrhage is getting the teams in the right structure and getting the ideal team working. And there are those two zones that you've got to break through generally. And firms generally fall into those two areas. And you know, Wize helps with progressing through those two hemorrhage points. And it is around people, it's around your ability to manage, because as I said, we're taught to do the work, not to manage the work. And then in order to leverage above that, then you've got to teach your staff to work, because the first hemorrhage point is getting yourself to learn to manage rather than just do the work. To break through that 600,000, you've got to upskill yourself to manage. And if you did that and you broke through that, you've got, you know, 4 or 5 people working for you and you're managing them reasonably well. But then in order to scale that even further, you've got to get your client managers to learn how to manage. That's when you hit the $1 million bottleneck, because you've now got to teach them how to manage. And you might be able to do it yourself, but it's another challenge to get them to learn how to manage. And some of them just can't manage. You just cannot change 11 spots. So that's the next hurdle. So that graph there very succinctly explains the challenges that most firms face. Yeah,
so everyone's on that journey, and most in this room will be, as we've encountered when they knock on the front door of Wize, typically coming to one of those danger points. So on their way towards that first danger point, or they've surpassed that one and they're on to the second danger point. And the pain points are fairly specific at each of those roadblocks. But the fundamentals and the journey remains the same. We always come back to building the foundations, the solid foundations of the business. Which starts with the org chart and the 7 divisions. So before moving into some of the specifics of the withdrawal journey, you might, just for everyone's benefit, start with the 7 divisions and anything you want to talk about here.
Sure. When you run a business, you've got these 7 divisions. But when you used to be an employee and you used to do the work, you were just working in division 4, that's production. So you were learning how to do the work. You know, you're on this conveyor belt, if you like, and you know, you're producing these widgets called profit and loss and tax returns and balance sheets. So you learn how to do division 4 work. And unfortunately, when you then decided to run your own business and you left division 4 to start your own business, you're now running your own business just like a big division 4, and you're ignoring all the other divisions, mainly because you've perhaps not been in a management role, and you know, you've only been doing the work like I was. I was just doing the work. So I ran my business when I left as a big division 4, just doing the work. It doesn't work because you can't do it by brute force. There's only so many hours in a day that you can get to. So you have to put in structure and systems and processes, and you've got to build this foundation. And then on the withdrawal journey, you've got to then start withdrawing from these divisions and start replacing yourself in these divisions. And as you replace yourself in these divisions, your workload starts to drop down. So this particular graph shows that when you work in the business, that's that line that goes from bottom left, that arrow that goes from bottom left to top right. And as you can see, that horizontal line is growth, or the number of clients that you have, and the vertical line is your workload. And your workload increases as your number of clients go from left to increase. So and that graph shows from bottom left, and it goes up towards the top right. And until you hit a point where there's not enough hours a day, you just run out of time and you hemorrhage. But that's when you work in your business, doing all the work, or the left side of the quadrant, when you're working for your money instead of your money working for you. Now, to transition across to the right side of that quadrant, which is where your money is working for you, then you've got to work on your business. And on your business is that dark orange line. And you'll notice on the left vertical line, your workload is really high in the beginning because you're working, 60, 70 hours a week, and you don't have any more time to work on the business. You say to yourself, where am I going to get this time from? There's just not enough hours in a day. But you've just got to find that extra bit of time, like I found it at 3 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday night to design a checklist for my staff to do the work on. And once I spent the hour and designed that checklist, then it minimized the mistakes that were being made, because your natural instinct is that you've hired someone to do the work, they've made a mistake, and you feel like, oh, I might as well just do it myself. Because they're making these mistakes and I haven't got time to train them. So design a checklist and it'll minimize that. That's working on the business, but you've just got to find some time just to do that. Then, the other thing is you've got to train someone to do the work. And you go, well, I haven't got time to train. It's quick if I just did the work. And by the time I've trained that person, I could have just done the work. Well, that's the wrong thinking, because you'll end up just having more and more work to do. So you just got to just get an hour somewhere to train that person. As soon as you train that person, they know how to do the work. And then what you find is that your journey is that orange line from left to right. And as you can see, it goes down. And when you work on the business, your workload starts to go down until the two lines intersect. And at that point, things start to get, much better. So I used to work 100 hours in a week in my practice, and today I don't work there at all. And because now the practice, the business, the assets are now working for you, and that's when that line intersects. But you've got to make that investment. From accounting terminology, you've got to invest in your balance sheet as opposed to working in your P&L. And that orange line from left to right is working on your balance sheet. The line from left to right going upwards is working in your business, where you're working in your P&L. So the more you invest in your balance sheet, the less, the quicker you'll get to that point where the business is making money for you, instead of you having to work for the money. Your business is working and earning you money. That journey, though, it takes takes a bit of time. It doesn't happen overnight. And Brenton, if I get you to just show us the org chart again with the different divisions, and I'll just take everyone through this. So obviously division 4 is where the production is happening, and you're also seeing clients, you know, division 3. And you spend all your time in division 3 and 4, and then you hire somebody to do division 6 and 7, which is all the admin staff and all that. So the first withdrawal from your business is your admin. So you need to hire somebody to do the admin, and that's the first withdrawal. So you design all the systems, the processes, you hire somebody and you train them. And then that takes a whole lot of work off you from a division 6 point of view, which is the administration. And then the next place you want to withdraw from is division 7, you know, or the accounting for your own practice, the reports and all that you may be doing yourself. So you need to find someone to do that. And if your practice is small or your business is small, the same person can do division 6 and 7. In fact, if you're small, you can do 5, 6, and 7. Now, the next place you should withdraw from is division 4, which is the production. So you need to hire somebody to do the production, and then you just do the consulting with the clients. And but you got to get the resource mix right initially, because the confusion often is, do I hire a really junior person or do I hire a more senior person? There's a tendency to hire a junior person because they cost you less, but that's a bit of a false savings, because if you hire a junior person, depending on where you are in your business life cycle, if you're still doing all the work and you hire another junior person, well, guess what? You've just doubled your workload because you've got to train that person. So that's been a wrong investment. So you should hire a more experienced person to actually take the workload off you, and then that person also train the next person that you're going to hire, which is a junior person. So you've got to get the timing right, and depending on where you are in your business life cycle, as to which person you should hire first. And often people get it wrong because they're looking at, you know, the costs and not long term, which is, you know, what's going to reduce my workload. And an investment requires you to take a step sideways or a step backwards financially in order to take 4 or 5 steps forward. You know, so you've got to make that investment, and often people aren't prepared to take a step back financially in order to take 5 steps forward. So they go for the least costly person, and that's often the wrong move. So that's important. And then once you've got the production out of the way, then you've got to you know, you're still seeing the clients. So the next person you've got to get rid of is find a client manager to see the clients, and that's division 3. So you're withdrawing yourself from right to left until you end up only doing division 1 work, which is where I am. I just sit on the board. I go back there once a month for a board meeting. I look at the numbers, and then we discuss, you know, things that are happening. We come up with a solution. I then leave, let them get on with it, and then I meet up with the team again, or the managing partner, if you like, again the next month. So that's the journey that I've gone through, and the journey that Jamie's gone through, and that's the journey that most people should go through if they want to have a business that works by themselves, or have more choices in their life. They may want to just choose to work in division 3 or division 2. So to give them, you know, more choices in life, and enjoying your life, and not doing the things that you don't want to do, or being a prisoner in your business.